Hello and welcome. It's All for United. We are back again. If you've just joined us from TikTok, I ranted at you and told you to come over here. Well done. If you joined us from Twitter, even better. And if you've joined us from Instagram, we haven't posted on there for about 2 months. So good job there. But it's time to begin. Don't worry, we've got the Olympics. So I'm going to find out whether or not Adam Peaty can make it the third gold medal in the breaststrokes. We will be keeping an eye on that just in case you're bothered and wondering. But we are here to discuss Manchester United Football Club as ever. And at 1 o'clock this morning, Manchester United faced Arsenal in a pre-season friendly in America, as you do. And we're here to have that conversation. But before we do, let's have a little look at this stunning panel of just amazing, wonderful, brilliant human beings that we've managed to assemble here. Just below me, live from America itself, is Mr. John Commode. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. It was nice having a kick-off at a reasonable time for me, which I've been waiting for all year. But because it was at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard.
Back to the good old days when you lived in England and
it was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed the game in spite of the results, and but yeah, it's good to be back on. I hope everybody's well, and let's crack on.
Absolutely, and just in the corner down there, back by popular demand, but with his specs off now, so looking a lot less intelligent. Mr. Stu Woolley, how you doing, sir?
Well, intelligent and me don't go arm in arm, I'm afraid. So as you're getting old, it's you need glasses, don't you, to read? And, but pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. We've started our pre-season campaign already. The mighty Tipton Town. We've been marginally more successful than Manchester United so far. Our Zimmer frames have got wheels on them now, so we can move across the park a bit quicker. And yes, so I'm feeling rather fresh. And bloody hell, Benjamin is in the chat. Good to see you, Benny boy. Hope you're well. But apart from that, pretty good. Looking forward to the show.
Beautiful stuff. And of course, my right hand man on my left hand side, who's going to get an alarm clock for Christmas, Mr. Danfield. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Can I just say, Benny in the chat talking facts as well? Absolute facts. I'm sure we'll bring it up in a second, but as always, talking facts. Big technical issues there. It would not let me on.
You think that was StreamYard, but it might have actually just been me. Just keep you out.
I'll dance for a bit then.
Well, everybody's mentioned Benny. Let's throw him up into the chat and he can kick us off today as if he was here in the spirit. Mr. Harry Amassi says, that is all. Been banging on about him for well over a year or so. I didn't see a huge amount of the game, I've got to be honest, but the bits that I did see towards the beginning, absolutely unreal. Just complete composure, almost like a left-back version of Kobbie Mainoo in terms of the ability to just sit there and chill out. No dramas, young, but yet a very old head on his shoulders, it seemed. John, kick us off with Harry Amas. That seems to be where we're starting tonight. What did you make of that young man?
There was some good performances last night, and I thought Hamas was putting a very good performance. Whether he's quite ready for the first team yet is possibly a big question, but in pre-season, as well as getting the fitness up of some of the main players, it's also an opportunity for some of the younger players to get a run out with the team, get some minutes, and potentially look at time away. I'm not sure Hamas will get any minutes in the first team this season. However, it's a good insight into his developments, and he put in good performance. He got stuck in. I thought Collier was very good as well. He put in a good performance, and it was impressive to see him get a run out, not just yesterday, but he's played against Rangers and Rosenborg, and he's done pretty well. So obviously they'll needs to be a decision about him, whether he goes out on loan, whether they retain him. That's obviously up to the club, but he's certainly put himself in the window potentially. And I thought he was very impressive.
For sure. Stu, Harry Amass has been mentioned on this channel numerous times. So I'm going to go down a slightly different route with you for this question, because obviously we had also a very good left back in Alvaro Fernandez, who we found on loan and then eventually got rid of. Do you see Harry Amass having a similar fate, or do you see him being more likely to be kept, especially with the slim pickings that we seem to have at left back at the moment with regards to injury?
Yes, see, I think Mr. Amass has got quite a bright future with Manchester United. I like him, actually. I like his low centre of gravity style of play. I like his ability to travel with the ball. He's still got positional issues, but some of the the more seasoned professionals have positional issues on occasions. But I think he's probably at the right club right now for his development. I think if we'd had this conversation without the introduction of the coaching setup that we've got, then maybe we might be having a more serious conversation about his ability to thrive under what I would call a dysfunctional system, as opposed to what I believe to be a functional system. So luckily for him, I mean, don't forget he's only 17. I think he's at the club now just at the right time. As I tend to agree with John. I don't think he'll get much Premiership time, but I think he'll play a lot of Carabao Cup, or however far we travel in the Carabao Cup. I think if we're away, it's a lower league team for the early stages of the FA Cup, I think he'll get a run out there. I think he's one of those, Baz, that's going to get the Kobe Mainu type treatment, the Alessandro Garnacho type treatment. And Dan will probably, and Johnny will probably be able to tell me there's another midfielder that's just been interviewed a couple of times, and I'm going to say Day. I know it's not a Day, but something similar to that. Yeah, you know the one I mean, don't you? You probably both do.
I'm trying to think, because since moving, I know we did well on the under 18s, but I haven't paid as much attention to the academy as I would have liked. But we do have some good youngsters coming through.
So I think we've got a really good midfielder. I was really impressed with his attitude. I didn't quite get my delivery right for Hugo, but Hugo made the most of it. That's a knowledge that we've not listened to or heard, from even our senior pros. So I'm quite liking what we've got in our kind of under 18 kind of scale. But I expect Amass to probably train more with the first team this year. I think he's got the ability to probably surpass Fernandez. I think, like I say, Baz, I think Fernandez was probably at the club at the wrong time. He's too dysfunctional. And, for a young player with talent, and as Amass has clearly got talent, I think somebody like Hackett and the new guy, I can't remember his name either. Bad with names today. I think there's going to, because the new coach is defensively minded by all accounts, so I think it should be quite interesting. So just a quick one on the structure. I know you probably spoke about it before, but to get 3 managers in as coaches and assistant managers is pretty good going. That's not bad. So I think it'd be interesting moving forward. We've got to do something at left back. Malassi has got probably still a longish term issue with his knee. You can't rely on the fitness of Luke Shaw moving forward. You can't rely on a 17-year-old. So you've got to do something maybe. But I see a system change in the new season, in the new campaign. So who knows on that one? There you go. See, Benny knows his stuff. Knows his stuff. Yeah.
There we go. So keep your eye on that one then. Finlay McAllister is the one to look for there. Dan, you've been mentioning giving Harry Amass a chance and a start, but do you agree with these lads that his performance time is likely to be limited over the course of this season?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all, to be honest. Should it be? I might disagree with that slightly. It depends what you're expecting from the season, to be honest. If you think we're going to challenge for the title, you're going to want to bring in a new left back, and you're going to want to, I'll do it, world class player that's going to take the team on. But on the other hand, if you're prepared to wait 2 or 3 seasons to watch it gel, I'd be quite happy to see Hamas start 10 or 15 games this season in the Premier League and see what we've got on our hands going forward. I just don't know what to expect anymore, to be honest. I find it. I'll ask the question because I've been confused by it most of the day, to be honest. I'm very confused at why we're targeting a right back over a left back at the minute, and it looks like we're going to get rid of Wan-Bissaka and bring someone else in before signing a left back. And as we've seen today or yesterday, with Yoro getting injured as well, sort of one centre back away from being in a similar position to last season. So I thought surely we should have seen back up at left back and centre back first before a right back. No,
I think it's ultimately Wan-Bissaka has 1 year left. And
do we not have an option?
No.
Oh.
That's why we got. That's ultimately the decision. And if he's not willing to sign a new contract, I do agree. I have no problems. I like Wan-Bissaka, but there's got to be a decision where you say if he's wanting to get more minutes, he perhaps might want to move elsewhere. And if he doesn't want to sign a new contract, in a way, it rushes the decision that you can't let him go free. So in many ways, you have to get rid of him now and bring in a replacement. That's what my way of thinking is. And then obviously I like Wan-Bissaka. He's one of the best one-on-one defenders around, but obviously some will question whether he suits his new style of play, which some people like to call it, whether he'll suit him. But that's ultimately what I think, because he only has 1 year left, and whether if he's not going to sign it, then you got a decision to make.
Interesting indeed. Again, I mean, I love you, Jennifer, but this is Evans, yes, and Casemiro can cover if needs, but why? We're Man United. We don't need Mark Casemiro to be at the back trying to cover again. It was an atrocious experiment that we should never, ever do again. I think if we ever see Casemiro back at centre-back, something's gone terribly wrong for Manchester United. Right. Well, let's get into the game, shall we? I'll go to Dan first on this one. We'll go back the other way around. But, I mean, I'm gobsmacked as to what's occurred there. I couldn't quite understand it. We had someone in one of our group chats pop up going, "Oh, Man United beat Arsenal last night," because all they'd seen was the fact that we're beating them on penalties. So imagine hell surprise when you wake up and realise that having been 1-1 at half-time, amazingly, somehow, miraculously, a 90th minute goal has been scored by Arsenal, dying minutes, and yet we still end up going to a penalty shootout having lost. What is going on with the? I mean, it really is. It goes back to what we were saying the other day, but it's just entertainment, isn't it? It's like you can hear Ten Hag saying we needed to practice penalties because we're in a lot of cup competitions. That only fills me full of dread that we're going to draw a lot of games. What did you come up with from all of that?
Well, they did it last year, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like a knock-on effect to taking penalties. You can't even say it's a pressure situation because they all know it's just a friendly. And Arna was basically messing around for 4 of the penalties as well. So, I was a bit. I'll be honest. I watched about half an hour of the game, and then that was me done for the night. It was a bit late, so I've caught up on some of it today. But it was a strange one. I thought it was good for half an hour. The penalty thing's a bit confusing, but I suppose it's just practice at the end of the day. It's the same as what we discussed on the last show about them going to America and stuff like that. I suppose it's just a bit of entertainment for the American crowd to see something different. Do you know what I mean? Like a show.
I think that's ultimately what it is, because they want to attract, a wider audience. Some people will never watch a soccer match in their life before, so they kind of want to introduce penalty shoots. I honestly, genuinely think that's why they did it.
So, Stu, does this mean, is it worth it? I mean, you weren't on the show the other day, but if basically it's been reduced to effectively becoming like a circus sideshow, where we're only there to entertain. Like it's a game against Arsenal. You and John were speaking backstage whilst I was hurriedly trying to sort out the little TikTok intro, and unbelievable. I heard you say, there's a. And it was a particularly feisty game. You said it always is against Arsenal, but that gets lost surely in the translation of just trying to entertain the crowd and being there to globalise the game effectively, which it doesn't really need, I don't think, as much. So what do you make of it all? The whole game, I'm trying to think of a nice way of putting it, sideshow of what occurs afterwards.
So, funnily enough, pre-season is becoming less and less important as we go along with football, because we played our last game in May. The bulk of the players have then gone off and played the European Championships or Copa America. So they're still playing. So they may have had 1 or 2 weeks off in between, 2-3 weeks of training. And then before you know it, you're away to the European Championships or the Copa America. Then you go back, you have your holidays. The interesting thing about footballers today is a lot of them take their personal trainers or club trainers, club physios, club chefs away with them. So they're never kind of out this footballing bubble. So you never see players go back, or you shouldn't ever see players go back overweight. So all you're doing, it's like muscle memory. As soon as the ball reaches your feet, it's muscle memory. What do I do? How do I move it? Where do I stand? And all that kind of stuff. So that's what pre-season's about. Manchester United and football has become such a global phenomenon in terms of fundraising and money making. This is all these tours are about. It's got nothing to do with preparation or anything like that. The penalties was agreed 12 months ago. So it was always going to be penalties, irrespective of if we'd smashed Arsenal 6-0. There are teams, though, that take it a lot more seriously. And when you consider where Arsenal finished the season as to where they've tried to start pre-season, they are trying to glue together the two ends so that they hit the ground running and they don't allow City that 6-point gap, that 6-point window, which with City is almost impossible to claw back. And that's where we've got to be. We have to be there. So the Community Shield in many ways starts our season. So when we hit the road at Fulham at Old Trafford on Friday, we can't allow any kind of gap, because City, actually, I'm not so sure about City this year. I'll be interested a bit later in the show. I'll be interested in your thoughts on City, because I see an impending implosion coming with City. But Arsenal in particular, probably just Arsenal, maybe Villa, we can't afford any early daylight because we won't catch them. That's the thing. And this is where, when you get injuries to Højlund and you've got injuries to Yoro seems a bit more serious to Højlund. Although I did read this morning on the United app that Højlund was potentially flying home. Whether that's changed after his scan or not, I don't know. You've got to kind of rest them now. You can't afford to play these guys too much in pre-season. So it's a very, very tricky balancing act now, Baz. I've got to tell you, to where it was when me and you were growing up, and Johnny to an extent, where pre-season was vital because the lads are away for 6 weeks. There's no personal trainers or anything like that, and they were coming back. They're overweight, and they were doing the bleep test, and the bleep test would kill them. It still kills me now, but it would kill anyone. But it's a lot different today. So I'm kind of with you on this. It's purely commercial, unless you've got that bit, because I think Arsenal were hurt by what City did over the last 4 weeks of the season. And, Arteta, he's very single-minded, isn't he, in his approach? And I think that's the difference on the night of the two. Don't give a toss about the penalty shootout, to be honest. It's like John says, but if you've been watching anything on the MLS at the moment, there's been a bit of a break, hasn't there, John, or something's happened, because they've been doing
much attention
they've been doing some stupid MLS All-Star fucking try and
that's what we use. I mean,
it's all entertainment, Baz, and that's all it is, man.
I agree. I personally think what you're saying about the PC. For me, pre-season is starting to become ever more competitive. I think because you're starting it. I mean, I was saying backstage. In my opinion, you shouldn't play any of the teams you're going to play in your own league pre-season, especially your rivals, because Arsenal, I mean, we'll talk more about the game, but it's kind of like they're serious and they probably have more of their players available yesterday. But I think it was good for our lads, though, because it had a competitive edge to the game. It wasn't like the old Fergie Wenger days, but it wasn't like your typical friendly, like not lack of effort, but players not trying their absolute max. But I do think now you're beginning to see. I think it's the other thing is that if you have a slow start to the pre-season, it can impact your the first month of your league, basically, because you'll see that if you don't get into rhythm soon enough, you can drop points in the first couple of games this coming year. And I've been paying attention to the fixtures. Well, we've bought a couple of players. We need to buy more, but some of the other teams like your Arsenal, your City, your Liverpools, they haven't bought that much. There's someone that I think the director of football Liverpool actually said a lot of the business will be done in August. So it's more important for us to get these people in. And when you look at the start of the league, teams like Arsenal and City, looking at fixtures, they've got a tough couple of fixtures the first 6 or 7 rounds. And Europe doesn't start until close to the end of September. So you would have played 6-7 games before you reach Europe. So I think those 6-7 weeks can go a long way to dictate how you perform this season. So for me, I do agree with you, Stu. I think when you look at players like Bruno Fernandes, maybe the longer break he has, maybe he only needs 1 or 2 games of pre-season and he hits the ground running. He possibly needs this break more than he needs to play in these games. So I do agree there's a higher optimum of players to keep themselves fit even when they have a break during summer. And it is interesting how things are, what will happen the first couple of weeks of the season.
You're not kidding. For those who've been wondering what I've been doing for the last 60 seconds, 112, I've been watching the swimming, and my God, I don't think I have ever seen a swimming race like it. Adam Peaty was going for his 3rd gold medal. It's never been done in the breaststroke. I can confirm it still hasn't, but he's missed out by 200ths of a second. And touched the exact same time as the other fella who's got a joint second with him. The winner was the Italian Martin Enghi, which we didn't expect. And the geezer that finished 4th had to have a swim off last night because he finished joint 8th to try and get to the thing in the first place. So unbelievable. Less than a second between them all touching the wall. An absolutely unreal race. If you haven't watched it, I know I've just spoiled the result for you, but go and watch it because that was unreal. And you know what? I don't really either in the grand scheme of things, but crikey.
No, he's good though, Peter, isn't he? He's 12 months out of the pool, hasn't he? 12, 14 months out of the pool. But the favourite was way down in 7th, wasn't he? The Chinese bloke.
Yeah. So amazing. To be fair, you could probably call him the Tyrell Malacia of swimming. Just disappears for a while. Let's hope that's what Malacia's going to do. Come back and shoot us up the table.
That'll teach you for dating Gordon Ramsay's daughter, won't it? Eh? That's his problem. Don't do anything with Gordon Ramsay. Move away.
Whilst from Mark's thing, why is the guy in the top left sat in an alley? I'm not going to lie. At first, I looked at that and thought, I don't think my house looks like an alley, and then I realised who you were talking about. So, Dan, why are you sat in an alley?
It's just the background, isn't it? We're going to have to change it now. We said that. I need to sit in like a beach.
That's the background. There you go. That's not really an alley. Who would have thought it? Benny, not a fan of the Olympics. Clearly. To be honest, Benny, unless it is Manchester United, you're just not interested at all, are you, Sam?
Absolutely.
I quite, for the love of the game. And we like that indeed. Benny also says, he wouldn't have Garnacho, Martinez, Bruno, Dallo, Shaw, or Mainu, or any of this American tour. Save those lads for the Community Shield. No point jetting them out for the last couple of games in the States. Generally, I agree. I mean, I think the whole thing has just been farcical, but you only need to go back and watch the last show if you would like my opinions on that. It's a little bit scary, a little bit freaky. Also makes me wonder why you're sat there just watching an alley. There used to be a TikTok stream that just did that. It just showed people in an alley. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And
it just shows that people will watch
anything.
Anything. Like literally, it's like a high street, and there's just an alley taking to the high street. So it's brightly lit, and it's like people are sat there. You'll go past like 100 people, 1,000 people watching it. It's amazing that people will do that. We're struggling to get 1,000 people to get on here and watch something that that's less entertaining than an alley. Seems to be the general gist of life. I want to move on to this part of the game because I tweeted earlier. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Because we've had a superb start of the pre-season insofar as the culture seems to be changing a bit, the expectation and the feeling around the club seems to be changing. Stu alluded earlier to the fact that we're getting people like Van Nistelrooy and actual managers in as coaches. We really are trying to have a bit of a reset. So Kel surprise again when Rasmus Højlund scores a goal. His first one in the new number 9 shirt, freshly taken from Anthony Martial. And then what happens? Injured. And what happens next? Euro. The guy we've been buzzing about at centre-back for the last couple of games, he goes off injured. Danny, you worried that we're going to have a similar sort of season to last season with players dropping out regularly and leaving us up the creek without paddle again?
I was actually quite concerned by something that Ten Hag said afterwards, which was that he'd only featured in 50% of the training sessions. So why on earth was he starting the game if that was the case? I found it really confusing when he said it. So if he's only fit enough to play in half of the training sessions, probably shouldn't have been starting the game anyway. And then the pitch itself, still will know more than anybody. It wasn't the best pitch in the world to play on, and that can wreak havoc for hamstrings and just in general muscle. So yeah, I'm a little bit disheartened with it, to be honest. I'm hoping we don't see it again. But I suppose it's gave us a little bit of insight into the fact that there's still a long way to go in the summer. Ineos have still got to make some moves and shore up the squad a bit more because we're still only a couple of injuries away from really, really struggling. Jennifer said it earlier. I still feel like we need a midfielder and a centre-back rather quickly to have the backup. I'm just hoping it's not the same, but it's just not good, is it? I can't watch this again. If it happens again next season, I'm going to struggle to watch it because it's just, why us, I suppose.
Stu, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. It has been tricky. And I think the thing is that we've all been sitting here thinking there's going to be some depth to the team. Or we've just got Euro. All of a sudden, we're going to get some depth at centre-back. We brought in Xerxes. So now we're going to have a bit of depth up front. But it just goes to show that as soon as this happens, we get an injury, another injury, and all of a sudden it seems like it's back to square one. I suppose the question I want to ask you on this one is, are we in a situation where actually some of us are maybe raising our hopes just a little bit too high, a little bit too soon? Are we allowing ourselves to get into what I like to call the England World Cup fever? The one where no matter how pants we might have been, the season, the tournament starts, and we still sit there and go, we're going to win the cup. We're going to, it's coming home. Come on, everybody. And before you know it, we're out of the finals. No one's like, well, we should have expected that, really. We've just gone out on penalties to the Germans. What's new? Are we in that sort of situation? Do we need to give it a couple of seasons before we start raising the temperature in that respect?
Yeah, look, it's a difficult one because if you just take Euro, for example, Dan mentioned the pitch, right? The stadium's brand new, etc., etc., etc. We all know this. And players have got such a variety of choices now in terms of footwear, stud patterns, what you can and what you can't do. I mean, just only last week, I bought a new pair of boots, but they're specifically designed for 3G. and 4G. Just that's all they're designed for, specifically for them. So when we're training, you wear those. If Yoro was in the wrong footwear last night, which he probably was, because I think Benny's made a point about they were using hose pipes. If you overwater a pitch and you're not wearing, and just say, for example, you're wearing what we call multi-ground studs. So that's one that will play on a hard pitch and supposedly is a soft pitch, but yet they're not necessarily studs. It's a mixture of actual, what we would call aluminium studs and plastic studs in and around the sole plate. And you can, because I did it yesterday afternoon in a friendly, you can get your foot caught up for no fault of your own, and because you've not turned right or you haven't got your footing right. And so I'm not saying that's what did it, but chances are throughout, at some point in the period of the game, he's done that and it's weakened, or even given him the hairline fracture that we think he's got rather than the sprained ankle. And that is down to the pitch. Now, a lot of the guys are saying it was an artificial turf pitch. It didn't look artificial to me at all. It looked like a grass pitch, but I think it was too wet.
They put grass on top of the artificial pitch.
Well, let me tell you something about new artificial pitches today. Artificial pitches have got actual real grass woven into them. And you'll see artificial pitches now get cut. And that's because it grows. An artificial pitch will grow. It doesn't grow naturally, but it grows and it's intertwined and it gets cut. And and what's happened here, with Yoro is one of 3 or 4 things. He's got his studs caught. He's been, we've just had an accidental clash. He's turned wrong or whatever, and that can happen. So, as much as I agree with what Dan and Baz are saying, and I do, and I do, I've got a huge amount of respect for your footballing knowledge, and I do. It can happen, but we're off the back of a disastrous campaign for injuries. So all people are thinking, and rightly so, oh fuck, here we go again. The same with Højlund and his hamstring. His goal was magnificent. It was a bit of a hopeful pass. He outmuscles the defender. The goalkeeper was woeful, but he scored a goal, and he's off. He's peeling away. But he may not have warmed up right. He just might not have, for his own personal warm-up routine, he might not have warmed up right. Because that was 10 minutes into the game, yeah? Your muscles aren't actually firing on all cylinders until about 20, 25 minutes into a game. That's where you become supple. And there's a difference between supple muscles and warmed up properly muscle. So a quick burst of speed can sometimes just not tear a hamstring, just dislodge something and alter something within the makeup. So if that is the case, it might just be a very, very slight strain. They're saying he could be available for the next match. I put him on a plane and you go home. McLaren's there, the new defensive coach, just go home. So, football is about challenges. It's all about challenges. And, people can moan about the pitch all day long, but it didn't harm Arsenal. Arsenal beat us at the end of the day, whether they get a last-minute goal or not. So the Yoro one, I actually think, and I don't know whether you covered this, Dan, Baz, but I actually think that Ten Hag's plans may well have to change if Yoro's out for 6 to 12 weeks. Because if you've got a hairline fracture, you're out for 6 to 12, depending on the severity of the fracture. So you're probably in and around the 8-week period. And that's with good, solid rehabilitation straight away. Oh, I think he's got a problem now, because I'm absolutely convinced we were still in and would buy De Ligt, even if it was later on in the transfer window, which means I think there would have been a system change for us. By bringing in Agate, if he brings in Agate, there would have been a system change, because he would have used Yoro, in my humble opinion, to carry the ball from the back. That's what Yoro's strengths are. If you've ever watched him, that's what his strengths are, as well as his, particularly, I'm sure Baz has made reference to this, giraffe legs that he's got, and he's quite graceful as a player. If you sit him alongside the more aggressive, the more stocky, the more hardened Martinez, possibly a nice mellow all-round player in De Ligt. You've got a wonderful back three that allow a wonderful interchange between Agate and Yoro, because Agate can slip in. So back to what your original question, Baz, my apologies. I think Dan's absolutely right. I do. But I do think it's one of those things. I understand the reticence of people worrying, but it can happen. That's all I'd say. He's done it again. He's done it again.
Absolutely. You're not wrong at all. I don't know why I keep doing that. I unmute myself, so I'm ready to go.
You do, don't you? Then yeah, you start. Yeah.
Dear. Anywho, this is scary, Beanie. He reckons we're a good decade off of challenging, which frightens me slightly. NT saying there, I don't think it necessarily has to be that long. If Pep does one and the Scousers don't get their act together, we could be up there in 4 or 5 seasons, provided we do everything perfectly. But the fact that we're waiting for other people to slip up is also a little bit of a worry. So, Golden Gamers come on and said, nice to meet you, by the way. Hasn't been any news on the conditions of Hoyland and Euro. Well, as you heard just a moment ago, as Stu was talking about it, potentially could be a hamstring for Hoyland, but we don't know to what sort of level, and a possible hairline fracture for Euro, but none of this is confirmed as yet, and we need to wait for the official news in that one, and we will all be hoping and having our fingers crossed for the best as to where they are. John, your go on this. It's just injuries galore. Dan and I are just sitting here worrying if there's going to be a problem. Stu suggesting, well, it does happen. And of course, injuries do happen. You get it time and time again in football. The great man, Ruud van Nistelrooy, let's not forget, was due to sign for Manchester United and was injured just before he came. And so had to have a whole year before he was able to come to Manchester United. So we know that these things do happen. But is it just a sense for you as well that there is just a fragility in the air now? The fact that although we've got this positivity and we are all starting to get those green shoots of growth for the club, because they are just green shoots of growth, they could very easily be trampled underfoot if we have a couple of injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable you'll continue to get injuries, but I think the most important thing is making sure that you prepare the players in the best way possible. And the pitch is the pitch, and I agree with Stu. Arsenal didn't get any players. I'm wondering with Erasmus, because he had he missed a chance which might have tweaked it, because Wan-Bissaka pulled it across and he went with his left foot rather than his right foot. Now, whether that might have had an impact, when arguably if he'd gone with his right foot, his head would have been more over the ball rather than almost like he stabbed at it with his left foot, whether that had a potential impact. Yoro, if he is to be out 6-8 weeks, obviously it's a blow for us. But I mean, we do need to, if we're going to get it, we've got to get it done soon, within next week or two, ideally before the Community Shield. But as for Yoro, but if he is to be 8 weeks, it might not be the worst thing, because it's around 8 weeks time when we'll start playing our European adventures. So for much of the first 6-7 games this season, I'd assume we've got a Carabao Cup game at some point, but that might be our only midweek game. So you can hopefully get by playing one game a week for the first 6 weeks of the season, hopefully. But I just think that, so ideally, if he does come back at the right time, that won't be the worst thing. But obviously with Ineos, they have got rid of some of the physios and all that. They obviously got to try and get some people in that that area, because obviously some of the decisions that were made by the medical department last season, rushing players back when they weren't ready, you've got to resolve that more than anything. But I think you can't always prevent injuries, because it just happens. You tend to get a lot around the autumn, and virtually every team got an injury. Had a period of injuries last season. Newcastle had it. Liverpool had it. think even City had it at some point. So it's about building the depth. Whereas with Højlund, if hopefully it'll only be, a little precaution or something. But last season when Højlund was injured, we didn't have a replacement striker because Martial was nowhere to be seen from December onwards. Whereas now you got Xerxes, so at least if Højlund's out, at least you got Xerxes as a big other. So you got to game manage. I think that's what Ten Hag has to get a bit better at. The squad rotation, making sure players find differences. I thought we were more compact yesterday, which was encouraging to see. It was noticeable playing high line. We caught Arsenal offside a couple of times. Obviously, their goal should have been offside the first one, but I thought overall we were more compact and, we played more as a team. So I can see while it wasn't the best result, you can see signs that a bit of an evolution. Obviously, we got to wait till some of our players come back, from who played in Copper and Euros. But overall, it's you're beginning to see a few signs of progress, hopefully.
For sure. Listen, the next thing I wanted to talk about was Harry Maguire. It's Dan's favourite topic. And the reason why I wanted to mention Harry Maguire is because obviously he has come out publicly now and has stated that, number one, when his contract's up, if we don't want him anymore, he'll be happy to go and find another club. But I think the bit that was most interesting is that he says, that's not what I've been told. I've been told I'm staying here and to help to challenge for things. So it's a simple enough question, really. And I will just throw this in Golden Gamer. We've answered that question already with Amas. We started the show with it. So if you're desperate to find out the information about Amas, just rewind it straight to the beginning. It's literally the first thing we speak about after we do the hellos, roughly 5 minutes into the stream. So get yourself in there and have a little look at that. Dan, I'm going to let you go last on this one. So, Stu, the Harry Maguire thoughts. What do you think about what he said? I think he's been a superb defender for us all in all. And I think he's a good option to have, especially with some of the fragility of our defence at the moment.
Yeah, so look, it's no secret that I like Harry Maguire. I like how he plays. I like his aggression. He's great in the air. He's not particularly good at the back and in his pace, but sometimes his positional play is not brilliant. But ultimately, he's been decent for us. And yeah, he had this time where he was really struggling, but yet at the end of the day, he's come back and he's come back strong. But let's talk about squad building. And squad building is key element to any successful football team. And we haven't done any squad rebuilding and squad building at all for a long, long time. So we've had players come in, but we've never shipped any players out that we need to move. And somebody asked me the question the other day, and it's quite poignant, this, Baz. Somebody said to me the other day, what would you do? Is there a player you would sell in the squad to accelerate a 5-year program to maybe a 2-year program? And I said, yeah, I'd take 120 million for Bruno all day long. And then I got absolutely lambasted for it. I'll probably get lambasted again in the chat, and that's fine. Everybody's got their own opinion. But there's a reason why other clubs are absolutely cutthroat. Liverpool sold Coutinho in his prime at 145 million, used the money brilliantly, bought in the keeper, Alisson, and bought in Van Dijk. Tottenham sold Gareth Bale in his premium and squandered the money for 80 million. If you were to sell the likes of, again, this is all about money raising, because at the moment we're going backwards and forwards for players because they're having to juggle the finances to keep within PSR. So the Wan-Bissaka deal, as Johnny said about his, and you said, Baz and Dan, about his contract situation. If we can get £15 million and we've only got to pay £21 million for Masori, then fair. And I think Masori's got the ability to play on both flanks. So he can play right back and he can play left back. So that's a good deal. So you've moved one player out and you bought one in, is a bit more versatile. It's absolutely brilliant. Would you go back in for regularly on loan? Yes, you would. if you want De Ligt, you've got to move either one of Harry Maguire or Lindelof out the club. You have to. You've got no choice. You cannot. With Johnny Evans signing a 1-year deal, you've got to then move either Harry Maguire or Lindelof out. Who gives you the more money? Maguire. Harry gives you the more money. He could go and play a brilliant season, couple of seasons for Crystal Palace. He really could. He'd be perfect for them. If we were serious about Branthwaite, he could go to Everton. If we're serious about De Ligt, can we do something with Bayern? Look, Eric Dyer went out there and flourished. Irrespective of what people think about Eric Dyer, he's a professional footballer who's gone out and flourished. Lindelof, for me, would be better off served in the Italian league or maybe the Turkish league under Mourinho at Fenerbahce. So if Lindelof goes, you've got to keep Maguire. But Maguire, I think, is a better, higher value product than what Lindelof is by about 15 million. So if we want Agate and we want De Ligt and we're looking at maybe bringing in Amrabat for this either loan or this 10 million euro or 15 million euros, and we're bringing in Masuri, you've got to start freeing up money. Ivan Toney's on the market. Look, for £50 million, £40 million maybe. If you want Ivan Toney, you've got to do that. I read today that Jadon Sancho might move on. So there's a lot of squad balancing. You've got to really balance the squad. So look, whether people are interested in Bruno going, I'm not particularly. I know Dan wouldn't. I know none of us in here would, because of what he brings. I know, Baz, you've got different views, and I get those, and I respect it. But there are times where you've got to take a punch in the face to progress in boxing, and football's no different. So Maguire, I think it's one of him or Lindelof or both, but I think you've got to sacrifice, I'm afraid. So Dan, I love him to bits, mate. I do, but I think sometimes you've got to look at the bigger picture and where you're going to be in 3 years' time, and Maguire helps us get there a lot quicker than maybe some of the 5 years. Just my opinion.
Well, Dan will come in to answer that in just a second, but we're going to go to John first to find out his thoughts. Should we go with Stu? Should we try and sell Maguire now and cash in on him, or are we just too fragile at the back to be selling our defenders right now without having a ready-made replacement?
Well, I think obviously I agree with Stu. We do need to bring in De Ligt if they do feel he will sue, and he's only 24. We've also, because the other issue we've had is a lot of our centre halves and our midfielders are all around a similar age, like either touching 30, whether it be on the wrong side or still at late 20s. You got to try and bring, some people who are mid 20s or even early 20s, and for me, and it's around 24, so that will be perfect. So I would agree that you've got to try and sell one of Lindelof or Maguire. It doesn't appear that there's much interest in Maguire. I don't know if there's been any stories about that, but it appears that Lindelof is probably the most likely. And I think with Maguire, while he might not suit our style of play long term, he is the type of player who can help, with his experience now. He can help, develop players. He can be a squad player. He can be, a person to, educate that. I think because Maguire will probably look at retiring within 5-6 years or something. So he's one of the more experienced players now. If you were to get good money, like 30 million for him, of course, you will consider it. It's similar with the midfield, isn't it? With like Casemiro, McTominay. So, for example, if most of us on here will probably say you get rid of Casemiro before McTominay, but it appears Casemiro, there's not much interest for him. There is interest in McTominay, and that will be pure profit as well. So if you were to get 25 million and you can't get rid of any other midfielders, you've almost got to bite your hand. It's the same with Wan-Bissaka. He won't be the first player you want to get rid of, but if he's one of the few players clubs are interested in a way, you got to try and do a deal kind of thing. So for me, it's about there's going to be a lot of movement in August, and it'll be interesting to see what our squad looks like by the end of August. I suspect there will be, and that's the other thing with pre-season, a lot of these players that have been playing might not be there by the end of August, and some players who are not part of it might be brought in. So, and it's not just with our club, it'll be multiple clubs. So for me, it appears Maguire will stay at this moment. I personally, if as interesting Lindelof, I'm not sure what use he has now. So whereas I think I look at Maguire and think he can have some use. I don't think he should start most games, but I do think that he's the type of player you want as a squad player, potentially with his experience. So for me, if I had to let one of them go, it'd probably be Lindelof, and you got to try and do a deal, get the highest possible bid, and hopefully move him on within, by the end of August, whenever it may be.
Okay, Dan didn't look at the private chat, no worry. Just go straight in, Dan, with what you want to say.
I didn't look at the private chat now. Firstly, I just wanted to go to that buy-in left back, right back, whatever position he is. I find it really, really intriguing that West Ham were quoted as paying 15 million for him, or 50 million euros, or however you write it. As soon as it's Man United, it's now 21 million pound, because all the add-ons have been added and the exchange rate's not been done. So it looks as if, from people that want to take it this way on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, West Ham are going to pay 15 and we've gone in with a bid of 21. So it looks like the club's absolutely ridiculous and bid 6 million more than he's worth, or was worth 2 weeks ago. And it's just anti-Man United reporting. Now, the Maguire thing, I'm genuinely getting bored of it now, because it's so frustrating. I woke up this morning to see that Maguire was at fault for the goal. So it was Maguire's fault that both him and Amas were playing the player offside and the flag didn't go up. So,
yeah. Sorry, can I just briefly interrupt? I was watching the game on ESPN, and they, with their United bias, and they were saying Maguire had his hand up. He was the one playing him on. No, he wasn't. He was off.
Yeah. Both players played.
The guy was off.
Both players played the line perfectly, and he was offside. But I wake up this morning to the usual suspects saying Maguire's crap, Maguire's shit, Maguire's this, Maguire's that, Maguire's the other. By the way, it's the highest line we've played under Ten Hag, just so happened to have Maguire in it. Can't play a high line, but we looked really comfortable for half an hour until Yoro went off. He's just got to be next to the right person. I would argue, whether people disagree or not, it's obviously entirely up to them. He was our best centre-back last season. He was our most fit centre-back last season.
He was.
So while I agree that he played well and he's done all this, that, and the other, I agree with Stu in the sense that we'd get the most money for him. So if Ten Hag don't fancy him, you sell him. And I don't agree with Stu on the Fernandes thing, but I agree in the sense of if Ten Hag doesn't want him, we can get 120 million. You have to do it, because that's ultimately what the summer's about. It's building a squad that Ten Hag wants to take forward for the next 3 or 4 years to help the method. But the Maguire thing's just frustrating to me. I personally don't see the hype around De Ligt. I'll have to go away and do a bit of research, but he missed 20 games last season, which is half the amount Harry Maguire has missed in 5 seasons. He missed in 1 season. So are we going to get rid of players that are a bit more fit than...
How many games did Maguire miss last season? Because he was injured for a few weeks around December.
He's about 12, 13 he missed in the end, come the end of the season.
Something like that.
So you mean, right, I'm with
but
you.
He'd not missed, before that, he'd missed barely any. Varane was our fittest defender for a bit, and then just towards the end of the season, he got injured himself, so he missed out on 5 or 6. So then it was Maguire was the fittest. But De Ligt missed 20 games, injured last season, so... I don't know why we would link. We need a defender that's proved that he's fit. I agree that we need a defender that's sort of 24 years of age in that middle bit. John's right. We're either ticking to the wrong end of 30 or 29 or a bit too young. I just, for Maguire's sake, he's not appreciated at Man United, and I don't think he ever will be.
No, he's not. Yeah, you're right.
So maybe it's better that he moves on. But I find it frustrating because in terms of a professional at the club, at the minute, he's probably the biggest professional we have in terms of the way he's taken the adversity, the way he treats the players coming in. he's been a proper captain, and people suggested that he wasn't that in the Man United ground. He's always held himself in really good stand with me anyway. But I do agree with Stu. I think it's about cashing in at the minute on the right players at the right time. Me and John spoke about it just earlier with the Wan-Bissaka. If he's not got that 1-year extension option that we normally have, we've got to try and get money back in, because the club's been absolutely awful for 2 decades at selling players. So that's where we need to start, and then obviously also not overpaying for players.
Yeah,
so I've seen a few people say like, "No, with the injury to Yoro, we should go and pay the 65 million for De Ligt." We've made that mistake for a decade. We don't need to be doing it again.
Well,
I'm pleased at what they're doing with De Ligt, Dan. To be fair, I think you're right, and I think you're right. West Ham didn't close the Mansouri deal, whatever it is, due to agent fees. Apparently, it's what I read. But I mean, I think a lot of it is 15, 16, maybe 17. And I think we've done a deal with the agent. But of course, don't forget, Mansouri is an ex-Ten Hag player. He played with him for Ajax, didn't he, before he moved over to Bayern Munich, so he knows him. De Ligt, the only thing I'd say about De Ligt is he offers a great versatility to play in a back 3 or a back 4. And that's what we need. We need this versatility to be able to play in a back 3 and back 4. You bring in Mansouri, you've got wing-back material, haven't you, with Dalot and him on either side, with Shaw and him on either side. You bring in Agate, you've got that wonderful kind of disruptor within the team that will allow Bruno to play a bit more freely, Mino to play a bit more freely. And you've got Zirkzee and Højlund. For the first time, we could bang 2 up top. Just imagine how different that would be, instead of doing this 4-1-2, whatever fucking formation he does. It just, we've got to be able to change it. We have done many podcasts thus far, and we've bemoaned the fact that, even Kevin Keegan, if he was managing in the Premier League, wouldn't have to do any research onto how Manchester United play, because we don't change it. We've never changed it up until the final 4 or 5 weeks in the season, where we started becoming difficult to beat and beating likes of City and that type of thing by playing a different way. And so that's what De Ligt offers. But if you've got Yoro down, you've got no choice. You've got to do something anyway. And you can't. Anyway, just one of those.
I think,
for sure. So we are getting closer. Bestie coming in just to sort of end for the most part. We did have a question from Mark, and then I've got a question that I'm going to throw out to you. So these are one of those sort of quick fire sort of questions, really, that might require a little bit of head scratching. But Mark's asked us, as a football fan, there's always highs and lows of supporting the team. What are the times that made you feel proud the most to support United versus the lowest point that made you want to hang up the shirt? And I'm going to say for Benny's point of view, because he'll never have said he would want to hang up the shirt. I can answer this. I will throw mine in because I've had a little bit of thinking time having seen the question. So it will give these three an opportunity to ensure they know what they're going to say. But I think the highs for me, the highest moment I can remember was when we won the Premier League for the first time, having gone 26 years without winning the league. I remember watching that, kneeling down in front of the TV and just weeping. Just absolutely weeping. Even as a 19, no, sorry, not 19, as a 10-year-old lad, I was just in absolute tears because I just understood the enormity of what we had managed to do. So for me, I would say that was probably the highest, obviously closely followed by the obvious answer to that one for most modern fans. The lowest point for me, I think, was under Jose Mourinho, if I'm brutally honest. The points where I was sitting there looking at the game and just thinking and falling asleep. I genuinely was. I'd put it on, I'd sit there, I'd watch the football, wake up halfway through, and genuinely all I could think of in my head was EastEnders is on the other channel. And I really wanted to watch it rather than whatever. In fact, I'd taken Songs of Praise, Antiques Roadshow, Loose Women, anything at that point. I genuinely would have watched. Exactly. Peppa Pig, I'd have been all over that rather than watching some of the tripe that was served up by Sir Jose Mourinho, although he did do incredibly well in terms of getting us to some trophies, which was good. So there we go. Hopefully I've given you guys enough time to come up with your answer to this question. Who wants to go first? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch tiger by the toe. If it honours, let it go. Eeny, meeny, miny, John.
Highs. Probably the highest was probably Champions League final away, because it was 50 years after Munich, and I lost my grandfather a couple of months before. That's the best I ever felt. I suppose there's a couple of honourable mentions. I think when we won the Europa League 2017, because that was 2 days after the Manchester Arena bomb. And I think I felt in Manchester at the time, even some City fans wanted us to win after what happened. So it was kind of like that. We did it for Manchester, and that was a very proud night as well. And I think the cup final this year will be up there for me. Yeah, that will be fantastic. But in terms of probably the best, probably the Champions League final in a way. The worst I've ever felt. For me, it's that Watford game, Ollie's last game, because I think from that day we lost something, and I'm not sure I've completely forgiven that they did that to him. It was a build up because we had a few bad defeats, and yes, Ollie, fortunately, his time was up, but I just think the way the players acted that game, that's the worst I've ever felt. We lost something. We kind of lost part of our soul that day, I think. So that's the worst I've ever felt.
Well, very, very good choices. We will come to the other two, but we just got to say congratulations.
Oh, yes.
If there's ever a reason to be late for a show, this is it. Just got back from visiting his new grandson in the hospital, who's called Thomas Michael. And if you switch that round the other way, you'd have Michael Thomas, which was the geezer who scored the injury time goal in the late 80s. Right? The whole fever pitch.
Imagine if it was called George. That'd be funny, wouldn't
it? Congratulations, Georgie.
That was my back in the war moment right there. We went all the way back to 1988 with that one. So for those that have been waiting, there it is. Stu, you might
great news anyway.
Oh yeah, very easy for me. My high was my first ever game when I was 7 years old, watching Man United v Wolves back in 1977. And
is it true that when you went out, it was still black and white when you were watching?
It was still black and white. The TV was black and white, just barely colour. Yeah, it's still. And my lows are there's loads of lows in football, but unfortunately, I had to sit through a lot of Dave Sexton and Ron Atkinson football, which was, Dave Sexton was a revered coach. He was a brilliant coach, but he just couldn't manage the club. And if throughout my many years of watching the game and being a season ticket holder now for 30 years, my 30th year as a season ticket holder, by the way, the lows would have to be, unfortunately, the late 70s, early 80s, and then Sir Alex came in and everything was great. So that would be my lows and my highs. Yeah, Mickey Thomas, Jesper Olsen was superb. Stevie Coppell, brilliant player.
Indeed. Dan, over to you for your two. Highest and your lowest.
I'll go for my lowest first. So my lowest would be Ferguson retiring. I can remember waking up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and it was starting to break on social media. Like it was
social media.
It was happening and it was all just starting. And I can just remember being like, it's going to be a tough couple of decades from now on. Do you know what I mean? Like we knew at the time it was bad. Well, could be bad. And it's unfortunately turned out that way. And then not just Fergie going, Gil going at the same time. It was just absolute
madness.
I've been lower than this. Trust me. Yeah, so that's probably the worst one for me. The highest is also streaming into an LES. This is high for me.
Anyway,
Yeah. He's obviously he loves my alley. I'm definitely going to change it now for the next show. So Mark needs to come back just to see what I change it to. Not decided yet.
I can see Jennifer agrees with my amount. What I put.
What was that?
Because she says beats Chelsea to win Champions League, and the lowest was sacking Ollie.
It was nice to see somebody who remembered Dave Sexton. Yeah, he's a massively brilliant football brain. Just couldn't manage a group of players.
It's also nice to see you, somebody who agreed with John. So that was nice.
Well, that's a first, isn't it? Can you clip that up, Dan?
Right,
Yes.
should do.
Get that on TikTok.
Yeah, that would be a first. And then,
JK.
do you know what? My best moment's a weird one. It was the way that the club came together after David Beckham came back from the World Cup. It really showed what the club was about. Because obviously I was only a teenager at that point. It really rammed home that it was us against everybody else, and that's the way the club was built, and that's the way it was all about. And it was just because I can remember at the time, it was absolutely relentless in the papers. He was getting booed at every away ground. He was obviously loud boos at the home. Just the way everybody backed him and stood by him. It's one of my favorite, most fondest memories, to be honest. It's what made the club what it was, that sort of togetherness. We need to get that back, to be honest.
And maybe that's what led to the treble in many ways. Because I think
possibly.
So from 99, Keno said, yeah, people were fighting and all that, but lucky for him, he had teammates who will fight back for him. So in many ways, I think everything happened with Arsenal winning the double, the World Cup, and it was like that sense of we got to go for it now. So, yeah.
I've got to be honest, Dan, I genuinely thought your highest moment was going to be something like Beckham from the halfway line or Beckham's corners for
Beckham
the treble in 99. And I thought your lowest memory was going to be Beckham going to Real Madrid. So I was not surprised to find David Beckham somehow.
David Beckham was definitely going to be in there.
I'm surprised he didn't say his lowest point was Ollie leaving.
I'll be
honest, Kenny, I thought this would get picked somewhere, so I was quite surprised to see that it wasn't.
Yeah, you can't ever say anything bad about Beckham when he played for Manchester United, but that fucking Alice band, that poncy hair band, just before he went off to Madrid. I think that's why he had it, because he would have fitted in there perfectly, wouldn't he? Because
I'll tell you a low point, quite an underrated one, I think. But you remember when we lost to Bayer Leverkusen in that semi-final?
Oh God, yeah.
That was prior to Ollie's dismissal. I think that was the worst I ever felt. It was brilliant and goal-like status Fergie's at. If there was any criticism of him, we possibly should have done more in Europe. And I look at that game and I think, how do we let that slip?
Don't you remember, Johnny K, when we lost to Dortmund in the semi-final, Lars Ricken?
I was a bit too young then.
Was it? Oh, all right. There's no need for that.
Sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
No.
Yeah, I'm 2000.
Do you know what? I haven't sworn all night. Fucking Johnny K.
I can't clip that now. Last time I tried to clip Stu, it was a nightmare.
I was 5 years old when
I think it was 97. And
it was. Well, I think that was when. I think that was when Canstar's decision was, I've had enough now.
Yeah, I think it was it. Have a word, will you, Baz, please? Unacceptable, that is.
Listen, I just let people go. It's your voice.
I think Monaco was killer as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Monaco won the year after. So yeah.
See, mine for me growing up when we were talking about the Champions League was the Barcelona team, and it wasn't for the brilliance that they beat us in the final twice. It was how they even got to the final in the first place.
Barcelona.
In both runs, they shouldn't have made the final, but they did. And I'm convinced that if they didn't make the final, we would have won 2 more Champions League.
Do you know what Fergie said famously about the last defeat when Messi ran us ragged? He was going to play Ji-sung Park. He was going to man mark him, and he didn't. He can't. I can't remember if he gave a reason why, but he didn't. And he states today that if he played Ji-sung Park, we would have won that match.
Well, we should have been playing Chelsea in one of them, and we would have won that match. So
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been allegations of potential cheating on Barcelona's part around that time. And then,
surely not. Is that happening with City at the minute? Surely. No, definitely not the Messiah, Guardiola. Fucking Bayern Munich as well. You know, they run. Don't they run about 4 marathons a day? That lot, you know. They never got upset.
Well, I think didn't Gary Neville say something about that with the Italian
about 6 weeks ago? He reckons
they played against teams where they were almost like they didn't run the whole game, and obviously I think he mentioned it. I mean, we had a fit team, didn't we? Then
no, he meant it. Roy King was saying they were fit, but they couldn't get anywhere. The Italians were just.
Well, I can't bring up comments, but Barry, please bring up Mark's last comment. It's fantastic.
Who's
Mark's?
Mark. I wasn't going to do that. It was a bit harsh.
Oh, very funny, Mark. It's not that good. Fucking hell, genius.
Didn't Thomas Cromwell cancel?
All right, well, not that
I'm pretty sure Henry was the reason we got half time. We just like chopping everything in half, didn't he? Really?
Yeah, I love you a lot too.
He also had my pride for that, which was Stu. Sorry,
Mark, it's
I was trying very hard to leave it peace. I really was.
I love having the piss ripped out of me. Johnny Kay's been doing it for years.
No, I haven't. It's very I've been taking the mickey out of and Dan occasionally. So
I'm going to be all over fucking.
Everybody takes the mickey out of Connor, though, don't they? So
Connor normally gets it. Yeah.
I had one last question for the group of you, and that is very simple, but it's one that you're going to have to do on the hop. We've got ourselves a time machine. It's just been invented. It's an amazing thing. Stu's obviously used it already, so pop back and see it every day. I was going to say, it wasn't the best. So as you get into this time machine, what you can do, I feel so bad for you. Oh dear. Would be that you can go back in time and bring any 2 ex-Manchester United players to the current team that you think would improve us and where we would most desperately need them. So any 2 ex-Manchester United players. Be interested to see what you put out in the comments. But I just thought this would be a nice little way to end it, because we've spoken a lot about getting in these players and doing all those sorts of things. But I would be very intrigued as to who yours would be. Now, I'm a good lad, so I will go first for this one, because obviously I've been sat there thinking about it. And my 2 people are very simple. Dennis Irwin and Roy Keane. They would be my 2 people. I think that would sort out the problem in midfield in terms of covering the defence. And Dennis Irwin was very rarely injured and was just a superb left back. So they would be my 2 choices. But what about you? I'm not going to be mean to any of you. Whoever thinks they've got it, go first.
So mine would be Dennis Irwin - Stam. Wonderful player. Melded in together would be the most amazing ever. And probably Rude - Edwards would be a brilliant kind of double act, because I can't split between Rude and Duncan Edwards and Stam and Dennis Irwin. I just cannot split them, so I'm going to hyphenate them. So that's the only way I can do it, because Duncan Edwards, I mean, Jesus Christ. Johnny Kay will tell you, because he's researched. I mean, he was... it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
For the very short time he was a footballer, on how good he was. But I can't leave Rude out, because you all know my affinity to Rude. Dennis Irwin, absolutely. And Stam. So I'm going to go with Rude Edwards and Irwin Stam - Stam. So double barrel names I'm going for.
It's interesting. Which one of those double barrel names are you going to go with? Because you completely circumvented the question. Don't think I haven't
There's
noticed.
4 players.
No,
picked
no.
So
No.
not only have you've taken your time traveling machine, you've gone all the way back to bloody Frankenstein and created 4 players out of 2.
I think Duncan Edwards was all those players.
On the elder statement,
someone
it would be Duncan Edwards and Dennis Irwin then, because
Good job, well done.
yeah,
No,
Edwards was just on a what's it, generational talent, actually, wasn't he, John? At that time,
He was.
generational talent, yeah.
Yeah, but
What Johnny would you go for?
yeah, I mean, in terms of like what we're lacking, we lack control in the midfield. So I would agree with you, Baron. So I think we're missing Roy Keane in there, just for the fight, the leadership, and the ability to take control of the game. So I think you could do with someone in the midfield like him. There, Paul Scholes is pretty close. The other one, just general as an all-rounder, in my opinion, I will probably go Wayne Rooney, because I think just someone that you can play any position and do a job. For me, he was, I mean, you look at you watch Brian Robson, all-round great footballer, and for me, my generations would be Wayne Rooney. It's like you could put him in any position, and he'd do a job. So for me, I think you miss someone like him in the forward line, and I think Roy Keane in midfield. So for me, those will be the 2 picks I go for.
Very good. So Dan, who's joining David Beckham in your squad?
Can I just say, I hope nobody from EA Sports is watching this, because I feel like next year, if they bring out the FIFA, I'm going to have to pay a fortune, because they're going to nick Stu's idea and say you can like join players together to make them better and pay 20 quid for the cards. So I hope no one's watching that. Secondly, absolute shock here on first time ever. As soon as you asked the question, my head went Irwin and Keane.
Martin Buchan. Irwin Keane. Yeah.
Irwin Keane straight away, because it just fixes everything.
Yeah.
It literally fixes the entire problems we spoke about for the last 2 shows. Solved. Yeah. Finished. So I completely agree with Barry, 100%.
Wow. So basically it's Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin by process of what we will...
Unanimous decision.
Unanimous, yeah.
Or Roy Irwin.
Roy Irwin. So Keane hyphen Irwin. Absolutely. Keane hyphen Irwin. Nothing wrong with that. Then you could get Beckham and Dan. You could get Beckham hyphen Giggs.
I'd go for Beckham hyphen Rooney. That'd be a good one.
Beckham hyphen Rooney. Beckham hyphen Cantona. Now, Jennifer, again, fantastic. She talks about Martin Buchan, and people forget just how good Martin Buchan was. Because Johnny K smiling. I've met him a few times. Wonderful gent.
Here's a question. See if anyone can. What is the only player, only captain to have done what?
Martin Buchan.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you he's the only captain to have ever rep for Puma. It's true. It's true. Yeah. That's when I first met him. I was 16 years old, and he was he came into a sports shop where I was a YTS, if Jennifer will know what a YTS is. And Martin Buchan came in, and I had a conversation with him. He was a Puma rep. So that's your answer, Johnny K.
There you go. Yes, he's actually the only captain in history to have lifted both the Scottish Cup and the English FA Cup.
Ah.
He's the only person who's ever done that. So, yeah.
Johnny K knows his stuff, Johnny K does.
Yeah, he does indeed.
Johnny K's dad is very good.
United, or the Attenborough hyphen Cox, as we shall be referring to him as now on. So there we go. Guys, I think we have reached the climax of yet another fantastic show. Congratulations to all of you who have been watching, especially if you watched the last show. It's our most watched video in a year, which is absolutely amazing. So get yourself on there. Watched it. Sorry?
I wasn't on it. I mean, what's going on?
Well, who knows? This might be the next one. It might be our
God.
most watched show in a week. You never know. We'll
Well,
find
Johnny
out
K's here,
in a
so
few days
I'm
when the
surprised.
stats come up. We'll be back
Figures
during the middle of the
down.
week at some point.
So,
I believe Real Betis coming up, so I'm sure there'll be a conversation with regard.
it was on a
Wasn't on the Antiques Roadshow. Actually, to be fair, Mark, my very first shirt, you could get that on the Antiques Roadshow now. It was Admiral. It had no sponsor. Back in the day, back in the 70s, it was all transfers. And if your mum didn't wash it right, you would go to school with half an Admiral logo and half a United crest. It was terrible. So some of the parents, especially the Wolves fans at the time, it was quite easy to cut like the Wolves emblem out. So the parents used to cut those out, and
Wow.
yes.
So, yeah.
George has just put out a heartfelt thanks to all of us. I need to put out a heartfelt apology to Stu because I feel like my black and white TV conversation has set this right up. So I'm looking forward to the absolute rollicking I'm probably about to get. I might just dip straight out.
You'll be fine.
Barry, you got to make sure I get on the show, like predictions out of the new season, probably a week or two. And make sure I'm on because I've got some interesting things.
Oh, you've been told that
with this season, so yeah.
I would say that's less down to me and more down to you being available, if I'm honest. So we'll see how we get on.
It has to be on a weekend, but as long as it's on a weekend.
I would quite like to be a part of that, Barry, if I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's 2 people down. That's a show done. So we'll just work out a date.
Benny's in the comments there as well, so that's 3.
Come and join us, bud. Come and join us, Benny.
Yeah, Benny. This is a big one here. Benny's saying get back on again.
Yes.
In your courts, boys and girls. It's never been a
problem. Me, Stu, Benny.
You two
on
I'll tell you what.
Amazing.
Listen, don't take this the wrong way, boys, but if we get a show with you, Stu, and Benny on, I'm just going to sit here in the corner and switch it all off while you lot crack on. Because that is going to be a triumvirate of conversation.
We won't need a host. We won't need a host for that, will we?
I could just sit backstage.
But
honestly, I'd sit that one out just to watch.
Thinking about it, Baz, I'm lucky that you haven't got a filter that can actually turn me black and white. Because if you could, for the comedy value, that would have been absolutely brilliant. Do
you know what? I'm going to have a little chat with old Condog and see if that is something that we could potentially do. Because
even I'd laugh at that, Baz, to be fair.
Quite amazing.
Quite comical.
I remember there was a show I did with Benny. It was about 2 years ago. It was me, Andrew Wall, and Connor, and I think Benny had a period where we spoke for about 15 minutes and none of us could get a word in. He covered about 4 topics in that time.
He's brilliant, Benny, isn't he?
Yeah,
hey, Mark,
we gotta get Benny back on. He'll be.
Did you see Mark's comment, Baz?
I did, and I'm going to bring that up in just a second. I can't tell you black and white, but I can apparently change your name, which is quite good.
Hey, Edward the Confessor.
I managed to do that. So
well, there you go.
It's like,
I'll go to the costume shop and get myself sorted.
Yes, it would work nicely.
There's a great song by Herman's Hermits that goes, I'm an idiot, I am.
Didn't we say the show was
saying put your shin pads on. Listen, I mean, he's a lovely bloke. He really is. There won't be any dramas with that. And I do think I could probably win a short distance race.
Guaranteed.
I am way nippier than people give me credit for. And last but not least, Mark, brilliant thing that you put in here. For 7,000 subscribers, you managed to keep me engaged more than any other United channel. So thank you. No, thank you. That's what we try to do. And we know you're joking. That's all good. That's why we are happy to have you here. At the end of the day, it's all for United. It's for everybody's voice. That's the whole purpose of us being here. So yeah, get yourself on. And again, if you are one of those wanting to get on, get in touch. It's absolutely doable. And we will look forward to having you on here yourself. It's been a good one. We'll see you during the week at some point. Keep your eyes on Twitter, TikTok, and of course, keep your notifications open. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you later. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.